Hello and welcome to Tater Talk, the podcast about Apopka. My name is Joshua McMillan, your podcast host and volunteer here at the Apopka Museum, where our Black History Month exhibit is currently on display. In today's episode, we will be discussing Apopka's 19th century Black community, the foundation for the modern Black community of Apopka. And we will be discussing this with Miss Francina Boykin, our Vice President. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
So in today's episode, we just want to kind of give the audience a general history of Apopka's 19th century Black community. And so I wanted to start this discussion with the Seminole village on Lake Apopka, which was named Ahapopka, from which the word Apopka comes. And this settlement, which was inhabited up until the Second Seminole War of 1842, was home to several hundred Seminole families and Black Seminole families who was descended from escaped enslaved people from Georgia, the Carolinas mainly. So these people would have constituted the first Black residents of the Apopka area, and after their removal in 1842, we have the stage kind of set for modern Apopka's foundation and settlement. So my first question would be, who was William Delk and what is his importance?
William Delk became a major player or figure in the Rock Springs area. William Delk and his 20 slaves came to Apopka around 1840 from Georgia, settling in the Rock Springs area. Major Delk fell in love with that location. It has been documented that it was a 3,000 acre homestead
Wow.
where he farmed
Right,
and
and this was located where Rock Springs Park is today.
where Rock Springs Park
Okay.
is today.
Okay,
And
and
Delk was known
uh,
as, he and his 20 slaves were known as the environmental stewards
right,
of that
right.
location.
So that's why I wanted to ask, why is this community of enslaved people that lived on his plantation particularly special to our Apopka history, and what was their livelihoods like?
They farmed, they built dams in and around the springs. They One slave, Anthony Frazier, became Orange County's road commissioner,
Oh,
building
okay.
a road from Rock Springs to Orlando.
Wow.
They were quite industrious,
Uh-huh.
as well as farming in the area, making it, a very significant location
Right.
for early.
And what was the significance of the Wekiva River Basin to Apopka's early settlement and Black history?
The Wekiva Basin, many early settlers came via the springs from
Mm-hmm.
the St. Johns River down
Right.
through the springs. And the springs offered such richness, especially for the farming in the area
Mm-hmm.
and their
Okay. Mm-hmm.
survival.
Now, were there any other plantations in the Apopka area, and who had enslaved people living there?
You had the Goolsby family, you had Jonathan Stewart, uh, and another Stewart family member who owned slaves. Apopka was known as the Lodge City
Right.
before 1882.
Mm-hmm.
The Masonic Lodge, which is still in existence today, is Orange Lodge number 36, was constructed by early slaves. they built the Masonic Hall.
Right.
And
Which is the oldest still surviving building in the city.
yes, the lodge is.
Okay. Now, how did the Civil War play out in relation to Delk's plantation, and how did it afford Apopka's black residents some of their first freedoms?
Um, Major Delk freed his slaves in 1863, right after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It is it's stated that Delk said to his slaves, "You're free to go." So his slaves, uh, as is documented, traveled down the St. Johns River and
Mm-hmm.
kind of hid out,
Right.
and
And was
some
they traveling on like a wooden raft?
they were traveling on wooden raft
Okay.
and by feet,
Right.
by foot rather.
Right. Because the St. John's River was kind of like the highway for people and transportation back then.
Yeah, it was the main
Right.
thoroughfare. It was the portal of entry for many,
Right.
many early settlers because you didn't have the railroad yet. You did not have
Mm-hmm.
I-4. But anyway,
Yeah.
going back to that era, the waterways was the
Right.
means of travel.
Right. Now, is it true that William Delk had one son fighting for the Union and another fighting for the Confederacy?
I find the story quite fascinating with William Delk and his 20 slaves, and one in particular, his slaves was his son, Joseph Delk Robart, his biological son by one of his slaves, who became a very central figure. Joseph fought in the Union Army, and
Mm-hmm.
Delk's Caucasian son fought in the Confederate.
Right.
So speaking of a house
Divided.
divided,
Mm-hmm.
and Delk himself was considered maybe we would call him a double agent in this
Right.
time
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he sought out ways to. He was very concerned about the 3,000 acres than he was about who was
Right.
winning the
About the
war.
war.
Yes.
Right. So many people who live in Apopka today are unaware of the fact that slavery existed on what would become Apopka. Why do you think that is?
Well, lack of knowledge or being taught about your history in early days. It's just something that just perhaps went over everybody's head, the significance or
Right.
where slaves would have
Right. Because
been.
we usually think of, Georgia,
Alabama,
Alabama,
yeah,
North
Carolina.
Florida, but we did have slavery right here in our backyard as well.
Oh, yes, we did.
Now, after the Civil War, we have a very special figure coming to Apopka. So, can you tell us who was Sarah Mead? When did she come to Apopka? And why is she a name that all residents should know?
Sarah Mead was a phenomenal woman, born in slavery in South Carolina, sold to a slave owner in Georgia. We trace her back to the Thomasville, Georgia area.
Okay.
It was said that it was kind of tough in Georgia,
Uh-huh.
picking cotton, those type of jobs. So Sarah moved to Jacksonville, Florida,
Oh,
and
okay.
her sister was in Jacksonville, Florida, and her sister had heard about Apopka. That
Mm-hmm.
Apopka was up and coming. It was busting. It was after the Civil War.
Uh-huh.
So Sarah was now a free woman, and she and her husband, Lindsay, took flight or just talking.
Right. So they went down to St. John's too.
They came down the St.
Okay.
Johns River through Clay Springs, Wekiva Springs,
Mm-hmm.
into the region, coming into Apopka, settling in what became known as Mead's Bottom, which is located at south of 436, where 436 ends, and where Highway 441.
Right. Right where the Highland Manor is today. And
Yes, the Highland Manor and the Hilton
Hilton.
Garden.
Right.
Because it sloped downward,
That's why it's called Mead's
bottom.
Bottom.
Yes, Mead's
Okay.
Bottom.
And how does Mead's Bottom fit into the larger picture of... Oh, I'm sorry. Can you speak on the ingenuity and progress that historic Mead's Bottom represents?
Historical Mead's Bottom represents the success of the black family or people because Sarah Mead introduced many early black settlers to
Right. So she
Apopka.
came in, founded the community, and began advertising it to other black families looking for opportunity and a chance to grow.
Yes, Sarah provided. She had a commissary. She had. She rented out rooms or boarding houses. She supplied them with supplies to work in the farm as independent farmers. They came because sometime thereafter the railroad was coming through Apopka.
Okay.
So the Gladden family, in particular, were encouraged to come to Apopka because of its location and
okay.
because,
So that's how the Gladden family ended up in Apopka.
yes, at the
Okay.
urging of Sarah Mead.
Right. So how does Mead's Bottom fit into the larger picture of coexistence for black and white Southerners at a time not too long after slavery?
Okay, that Mead's Bottom attracted not only early black settlers but white families as well, who was looking for opportunities in farming, opportunities in other areas, buying land. And so it was, Mead's Bottom was a quite diverse community. And it was a model, if you want to say, to become what people who wanted to make money or become successful in their businesses
Right.
to settle in that region.
Right. And I think it's a great example of how an integrated place, even during that time, could thrive and be a successful community. And so, unfortunately, in 1937, then we have Mead's Bottom black community become erased
Distinct,
by
yes.
the ordinance that segregated the city. But there was a long period of coexistence for both communities during that time. So Apopka has a very rich black history, as we can see, spanning 3 centuries. Why is it so important that we teach the early and foundational history of this community?
The early foundation is the root of much of the success that black settlers were able to become very productive and own businesses and buy land. It was Mead's Bottom played a very important role. One person in particular who came through Mead's Bottom was a Mr. George Oden. He was a cultivator of citrus. He cultivated different types of oranges, and he was sought out by, because many northern whites owned the citrus groves.
Okay.
And George Oden came to Apopka somewhere in the early 1900s. Well, it might have been late 1800s.
Okay.
And he was gifted a 40-acre orange grove on the northwest side
So
near
was
Lake
he
Apopka.
the first citrus grove owner, black citrus grove owner in Apopka?
As far as the local
okay.
records indicate, because he not only was here in Apopka, he was throughout Central Florida, wherever the citrus trees were growing. That's where George
okay.
Oden was hired out, or he cultivated these probably acres and
Mm.
acres of orange groves. George Oden came here from Alabama and was living in the home or on the property of Sarah Mead back in the late 1800s.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, and I think stories like that, there's so many instances of things starting out small by just a few group of people who came here with almost nothing and became a seed that would later flourish into great big industries and cities and developments that we all now have been advantaged by.
My late colleague William Gladden once asked me the question, and it was, "What did the black man have after the Civil War? What did he have?"
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of scratching my head like, mm. He said, "Miss Boykin, you shouldn't have to think long about that." He says they had nothing. They
Right.
had absolutely no. They owned no land. They had no education,
Mm-hmm.
but they had skills.
Yeah.
They had skills, and they put those. Apopka gave them the opportunity to use their skills, and that
Right.
was in building, especially when the Masonic Lodge number 36 was constructed, which the structure, half of it is still its own blocks today, but the slaves constructed the Masonic Lodge in
Mm-hmm.
1859, I think it was,
Right.
because of the Orange Lodge was known as the Moon Lodge, and Masons came from all over Central Florida to the lodge.
The
So
Lodge City.
Lodge
Yeah.
City. And so the slaves and their contributions, that is so historical.
So important. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we've reached the end of our list here, unfortunately, but I just wanted to ask you what you have been doing this Black History Month to spotlight Apopka's Black history.
What happened this month, a few days ago, the city of Apopka honors 28 legends who made contributions to the Apopka community, be it business, foliage industry workers, people who worked the muck farms,
Mm-hmm.
people who worked on the railroads. There had been many contributions. So each year now, this is the fourth year, the city honors the legends, and those legends are deceased, but their contributions to the community is remembered
Right.
uh, at a gathering wherein families come to an event that is held, and there's a presentation done by the Apopka Youth Council in a project that I've worked closely with for the past 4 years uh, in documenting and sharing the legacies of individuals. Because we have one person who cultivated roses, a black man who cultivated a,
Oh,
ro-
okay.
a particular rose.
Uh-huh.
And so when you look at, then we have one called horticulturist who was sent to Central America in Belize to study plants.
Wow.
And they were, when you look at the
Yeah.
foliage industry
Mm-hmm.
and the black people's part in it,
Right.
they were partly responsible for making Apopka the foliage
Right.
capital of the world.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see that we have so many talented, invested people in our community that are continuing to be spotlighted, such as you. So I just
Yes.
wanted to thank you for everything that you do, all completely on a volunteer basis
Oh,
for
yes.
our city and for the museum. If you would like to come see our Black History Month exhibit, you can come visit us here on 5th Street in Apopka, right next to City Hall. And I don't know, do you have any closing remarks?
Yes. That is, embrace your history. Never forget where you come from. And not to be ashamed of your
That's an
early
important
beginning.
one. Yeah.
Never be ashamed of your roots.
Right.
I'm a native of Apopka. I love Apopka. And I don't know anywhere else I want to be but Apopka.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and please stay tuned for next week's episode with our new Apopka head of police. And take care. Thank you.
Goodbye.